Am I live? Am I live? It says you're live. I'll take it on faith that I'm live. Hey, good afternoon. Good Friday, Pi Day, everybody. It's Dave Rush with Total Seminars and Scott Jernigan working in the background right now. We'll see how that adjusts as time goes out, but we're here to get together once again for another Friday afternoon, talk about Raspberry Pis and CompTIAs and all that other good stuff. So thanks for joining us. Uh, Scott, my normal partner in Pi, uh, as is as always utterly swamped. He and Mike have been working together all week, of course, plus or minus the time that Mike needed off. But they got together very early this morning to continue working on the next book. And phase, I don't know, I can't number the phases that we're in right now, but they are in the phase where they've taken list of all of the old material that was covered, all the new material that's got to be covered, all the material that has to come out. And now the next step in actually building a book is creating a table of contents or creating a table of chapters and all the sub chapters and all that good stuff that goes with it. So Scott was anticipating that they would complete some phase of that project today. And he touched base with me about an hour or so ago and says, man, you can't believe how far we have made it and how far we haven't made it. So he's planning on not joining on the stream so that he can multitask. He is going to, as always, work the two back channels, communications with me, and watching the thread, watching the YouTube chat, answering questions as he sees fit, adding information where he can, uh, and doing all the other necessary things that happens. Sorry, I'm looking ahead on commentary, and I'm not quite ready to get there. So let's see what's up in introductory notes. When I'm solo, I got to do follow my outline so I know what I'm doing. So this is drama. Dave Rush, Ask Me Anything. This is a presentation of Total Seminars. We get together as Total Seminars a few times a week to do these live Ask Me Anythings. Mike Meyers, the big man himself, does a Monday session and a Wednesday session, 2 to 4 Central Time, where he talks about anything and everything CompTIA, and he creates special features on particular topics. On Friday, I do the same time slot, usually with Scott Jernigan, our editor-in-chief at Total Seminars, where I'm kind of the opposite. I mostly do features related to Raspberry Pi and CompTIA. So how to use a Raspberry Pi as a learning tool in CompTIA, but that's not all. Sometimes we just do things with Raspberry Pis that are cool and they're fun. And today's going to be sort of a crossover of both of those things, a really, really fun project that everybody has heard all about and may have been a little bit intimidated by. We're talking about Docker today. And if the idea of setting up Docker, whatever that is, on any kind of computer has ever been daunting to you, watch us today, learn today. You will walk away undaunted, and you can set up Docker and a Docker container in 10 minutes. I, of course, will do my usual, takes an hour and 10 minutes to present it all, but that's because I explain it along the way and we talk about all of many of the pieces that surround it. And so we're going to do that. Okay, so we get together, as I said, every Friday. For those of us who are locked down and looking for opportunities to continue our studies in various CompTIA, and it doesn't have to be CompTIA. If you're studying for CCNA, we talk about things that have to do with that and many other certifications. And you don't even have to come talk to me about certifications. If you got a question about computer technology in general, I can probably answer it. If it takes too much time away from what we need to accomplish here today, I'm going to take it down and get in touch with you later, or answer it on one of Mike's AMAs, or come back to me on next Friday and we'll have an answer for you. But we try and get through this stuff quickly and efficiently and have a little fun and do our feature topics. Hey, I did that. By the way, just if you're counting, this is number 34 in the drama series. Why do I mention that? Because I got a web server set up that you can access. It's self-hosted. It's running here at the house. It's open right now. and it's called PIR Square, PIR Square .zapto, zapto.org. You can go there. It's not a very impressive website. I'm just kind of playing around with it. But down at the bottom of the main page is a link to a downloads page. And on that downloads page, I have 20 out of what will be 32 in the next couple of days of all of the resources that I use when I demonstrate feature processes and the notes and the outlines that I use. So if you want to watch these things on the archive, you can. And if you want to pause them and look at the slides that I have up, you could do that. Or you could just use one of the downloaded sets of archives that I make available for you. And you can watch those in windows and tabs and whatever you want and pause things as you see fit. So I encourage you to do that. I have a lot of fun with it. We're load testing the thing right now. And by the way, it's secure. It's an HTTPS. And you don't have to type in HTTPS. Just go to pirsquare.zapto.org and you will get sent to the HTTPS website. Yeah, let me put that up as a link right here in the chat field. There it goes. Okay, no typos this time. I did this the other day when I was helping out Mike with his AMA, and I typoed it. Everybody kept writing in, what's going wrong with this stuff? Okay, so 20 out of what will be 32 of them weren't any special shows. They were special, but they weren't projects. So we did an hour and a half with Dr. Eben Upton, the founder of Raspberry Pi Foundation. That was a ton of fun. And then we did another one where a project sort of fell by the wayside, and we just did open Q&A for the entire session. So nothing special to put together in an archive about that as far as resources that you can download. I know I'm not looking straight at you right now. There's been a change on my machine in how YouTube presents itself. So I've had to rearrange all my windows and I'm kind of all over the place. I apologize for that. Hopefully I don't know if that's a permanent change or not. Some people saying yes, some people say no. And I think what that means is YouTube is doing A/B testing. Some customers get it this way, some of it keep it the old way. And then they tally up the feedback and decide if that new way is the way they're going to do it and force everybody to go, or if everybody hates the new way, then we go back the old way. So this is an AMA. It's it's drama. Dave Rush, ask me anything. And that means I got a YouTube chat feed right up here ready to go. So post your questions, post your comments if you feel. And if you're watching this on the archive later, if you've got a long question, it won't fit into the YouTube chat, the little 200 character limit, or you're shy and you don't want to be seen in public, cool. There are other ways to contact me and Scott and Mike. And if I'd clicked on everything right on time while I was yammering, you would see this. There we go. Hey. So you can contact me. Send me an email, daver@totalsem.com. Or my personal email. I'm not shy, drushtx@yahoo.com. Don't use them both. They cross connect to each other and they'll start cross linking and sending messages back and forth. And eventually they'll implode and we'll all wind up in a big black hole. So avoid that. Again, Scott's face isn't here, but he is here and he may or may not jump in if he gets some of his project completed and he needs a brain break from that. But you can also email him, scottj@totalsem.com. And of course, Big Mike, if you want to send him an email directly. He's always excited to get those. He wants your emails and he wants to answer you. Sometimes he'll answer directly on email. Sometimes he'll say, I got an answer for you. Watch my next AMA on Monday or Wednesday. So he's Michael M@totalsem.com. Reminder, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel here. I do. I'm a regular user of it. I don't operate this thing. Mike lets me have this time slot. So when I check in, I like and subscribe. It helps people find these YouTube videos later when they're hunting for Raspberry Pi, YouTube. Hey, there's Dave Rush's show. Or how do I subnet mask? Looking for a YouTube presentation. Here's a Mike Meyers that did that. So this kind of raises our finding possibilities in the list. Whoops, I didn't touch anything dangerous there. I clicked something, but oh yeah. So let's do this, and then we'll go take a look in the chat channel and see what's going on. Just because you are kind enough to join us on these AMAs, the marketing department allows Mike and I to advertise some special discounts that we don't advertise to anybody else. We only talk about these things on the AMAs, and they're usually good for a week. They start on Monday when Mike starts his AMA, and they go through Sunday, 2 days after mine. So today's special, you probably want to see it. You don't want to just hear it. And Scott may or may not put that up. I'm not sure how busy he is, if he's able to do all his usuals, but I probably won't either. Let me pick what I want here. Okay, this, then we go to share and pick that. So this week's special is a really nice one. Like this one. AMA special of the week, 50% off all CompTIA Total Tester bundles. So those bundles include practice tests, sims, and videos. I'm not sure if we have a bundle for Sec Plus yet because we don't have the sims quite done for that. Scott is working diligently on that along with the other 45 plates that he has in front of him. But I know that he's made a lot of headway. I've seen some of them. I've got to edit some of them. By edit, I mean do input. I don't touch the code on that stuff. It's really complicated until you learn it. But whatever you want, go and check out the bundles. They're listed over at our store at www.totalsem.com. Load up your shopping cart, and then when you check out, use this code STAMP1765. The Stamp Act was in 1765, upsetting some of the local colonists. And you will get 50% off the bundles that you have put into your shopping cart. People sometimes write us afterward, I picked up your book and I used the code and I didn't get a discount on it. No, you didn't, because this week it's only for CompTIA Total Tester bundles. But you should still load up on the other loot to help get ready for test, right? So that's good through this Sunday, March 28th, sometime on Sunday. I don't know if it's midnight Central Time or whatever. And don't ask me to look it up because I'm not gonna. I got to talk to Kathy Yale, and I spoke with her already once today, and that's she didn't want to hear from me. I will also remind you, if you are teaching a class, you're a teacher in holding remote classes or in-person classes, computer-oriented, CompTIA-oriented, or just about anything else, technologically speaking, contact Kathy Yale. That's Kathy Y, Kathy Y, KATHYY at totalsem.com. She has tools, toys, and support products available to you, and she is ready to open up the barn doors and shove them out to you at beyond ridiculous prices, sometimes prices that don't even exist. So you want to get in touch with her. All right, that's intros. Just to cover my intro, since some of you there's a few new people already. We've advertised today's show because I am just beyond excited about it. Holy Hannah. Yeah, train of thought. I was clicking all over the place trying to get things set up. Well, I'm a little fuzzy in my view. I hope I'm not too fuzzy for you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was doing that thing. Oh, well, it'll come to me. Some timers at my age. Oh, yeah, I forgot to change my name today, too. Yeah, all these little things. I started operating from a checklist again, like I did in pilot days, but you always miss something in building the checklist. So I have to add to the checklist, change name. Today, my name is Uncle Jesse. If I'd had it put down in the lower left-hand corner. And if you're of a certain age, you'll know who that is and clear the reference. I was thinking about Burl Ives, but he was mostly bald. I still got a good head up there, unlike my illustrious boss. Hey, last thing, remember, you don't need a Raspberry Pi to do many of the projects that we do here. Some of them, to be sure, stuff we're going to do today, you could do on Windows, you could do on any other Linux distro. There's plenty of single board computers out there. We like the Raspberry Pi because, why? It's 35 bucks. It's a full-blown Linux computer for 35 bucks. A couple extra bucks for a case and a power supply and an SD card, but that's minuscule. I mean, and the things that we can do with these things, the things that we have done with them, and the things that we will do more in the future, Man, how can you not be excited about this? All right, let's go see what's going on. Who's here? Who's checked in? Yeah, then I can go back to that. Goodness. All right, people started checking early. Tullowit got here at 20 till. Alan Duggan is here. Alan, got your message and accepted that. Thank you very much. By the way, anybody else who would care to link in with me? And I don't know how to find somebody on LinkedIn and say, here's where you find me to connect. So if you just look for Dave Rush or David Rush and the word total seminars, I got to believe that's the only hit that's going to get found. And stick on over there, invite me to link with you, and I will. Put a message in there. Let me, saw you on your AMA. Would really like to link with you. I think you'd be the finest mentor I've ever encountered. Okay, so maybe not. But by all means, if you get on there, you'll get my notifications of when I'm doing really cool shows and things like that. Zach posted a message on there the other day, and I commented on it. And man, he has gotten so many more commenters and feedback. I think you may have gotten more comments to your post, Zach, than I have connections on LinkedIn. I've never taken it real seriously until this year. Now I'm going to kind of push on it. At 2:00, Scott says, hey, he's here. And Barney Muller. Boy, is that a play on the old Barney Miller guy, or is that just your name? At any rate, greetings. Nice to see you here, sir. Joe Foy, I've seen you here before. Dave, can you explain what actually an SoC is? I can. It stands for System on a Chip. So if you dig out a motherboard and you look at a regular traditional PC motherboard, what's on there? Well, you got a CPU. If it's older, you got a North Bridge and a South Bridge, couple chipsets. You got the CMOS chip. You've got memory controllers. You've got real-time clocks. You've got, look at all the chips on a motherboard sometime. The keyboard controller's on there. The Super I/O chip is on there. And. Well, wouldn't that be cool if you could just bake all that stuff down to a semi-purpose built computer, general purpose, but not as general as a PC, and put that all on a single chip. Get the CPU on there and get the real-time clocks on there and get the SATA controller on there and the. Well, now you've got the entire system built onto that single chip. Now, the way Raspberries are going, they're adding a few more chips here and there. There's a controller chip that's dedicated Ethernet now, and there's one that's dedicated to most of the other input-output ports. But System on a Chip says, basically, I'm going to take all of the circuitry and integrated circuits, at least as many as I possibly can, and get them all integrated onto a single piece of silicon. And that silicon, then, that chip, is the system, a system on a chip. Presently, Broadcom designs and ARM is co-designing the chip with Raspberry Pi group. Remember, there's two groups: Raspberry Pi trading the technical side that makes the stuff and sells it, and then there's Raspberry Pi Foundation, which is really what they exist to do. It's their charitable foundation to provide educational and computer tools in places where they are not readily available. All right, I super scrolled. I'm coming back. Thank you for letting me know I'm clear. I got to remember to do that now. If I do the wireless thing, is hello, can you hear me? Hello, hello. Can you hear me now? I'm waiting. I'm terrified. Oh, wait, somebody else says that. Tarun, I have a section coming up with your question in it from the other day. Let me give you the shortcut now. I don't have the answer yet. I have a call in to Pearson VUE, but they have not yet responded to me. And we'll talk about that question here and more explain the answer that I just gave. Oh, what is an, there was one more word. What's an SoC analyst? I don't know. Somebody who analyzes the system on a chip? Now, there's probably some system of computing analyst. You got me there. I'd have to look it up, but since I'm working solo, I don't want to go quiet and do research. So I will take that and add that to my list of questions. And Hopefully I'll have enough time between the show and Discord today. We'll talk about that in a moment, where I can come up with that research and answer. Bump, bump, bump. Okay. So Tarun Chada at 2 o'clock. Can a DHCP server in LAN A provide its services to LAN B clients? It depends on what level you're asking this question at. If you're asking this question at the A+ level or even at Network Plus, the answer is no. However, that's not the technical answer. That's the CompTIA answer, because neither of those sets of objectives get into cross-LAN DHCP services. The reality is, if you have an appropriate router, some routers, higher end, have a feature within them called DHCP relay. And it has the ability within a router to say, okay, on one of the networks, I got a DHCP server, and normally he just hands out DHCP assignments to people on that LAN. But if we invoke DHCP in the router, anybody connected to any of the ports of that router, when they make a DHCP request, that request will be relayed to the DHCP server network, and its response will be relayed back through the router. So the technical answer is, the way the question was phrased, yes, a DHCP server can, under the right circumstances, with the right equipment, support multiple local area networks. But as far as the objectives go for A+ and Network Plus, that never comes up. Joe and Zach know each other. Andrew Hutz is here. Greetings, mon ami. I see your name. I always want to do Lionel Hutz. I was doing that on Wednesday. I couldn't get that out of my head. Kylo. Right. So I had the White Stormtrooper last week. This week we got the Black Stormtrooper. I found both of those together at a thrift store. So I picked them up. I'm out of those things now. Next week I have my coolest piece of flea market Star Wars paraphernalia. It's this big. Hope I'm in camera on that. And I got to figure out a way to get it strung up there. And then I'm going back to shirts. Han shot first. Darn right, Han shot first. I can't believe they edited that out, cowards. Number 34 already. Okay, we're 22, and all right, I'm okay on time. So at 2:06, I posted a link to my server with downloadable archives of all of my resources that I use to put these presentations together. Enjoy them. I'm trying to edit them very carefully to make sure I don't have any personal information that you guys can leverage against me. Patricia Grace, greetings, lovely field of nerds. I like that. We're expanding. People say cloud is mostly built on Linux. Does Azure also use Linux as backend? I believe so. I don't have enough expertise in Linux to say no. I think it's fairly safe to say that they're not running their resources on Windows or on any or Windows Server. If they're running on, they got to be running on Linux. What distros? Well, they have, of course, had an internal version of Windows Linux, Windows System for Linux for a while. They may be using that. I think some of their features wouldn't, some of Azure's features wouldn't be fully supported by WSL. That's still under a lot of development. So I'm going to bet that their underlying software infrastructure is traditional flavors of Linux, maybe customized for them. But I'm sure in the future, it'll all be their own distro, their WSL product. Uh, 207, Andrew Hutt says, Dave, is there any reason to use my Pi 0 W for breadboard tinkering if I have an available Pi 4? Yes, if your Pi 0 W also has a full contingent of header pins, or if you're going to do an experiment with, a couple and you got to solder in a couple, but soldering in 40 pins. If I want to tinker with electronics, I want to play with a lot of the pins and wires that are on there. So it's a lot easier to do that with a Pi 2, a Pi 3, or a Pi 4, because they got all the pins there and ready to go. But again, if you have a WH, a Pi 0 WH, that's wireless and has header pins, that's cool. That's got the full set of 40 pins. But if it doesn't have the pins soldered in and you don't want to go through the trouble, then I'd breadboard tinker with a 4. Greetings, Jane Slayer. Okay, I see that. I make sure I know we had an interaction, and we've got that as covered as I can. So I missed like 2.5 live streams because I got a job. Huzzah! Congratulations, Jane. Let's see. I only took a blind to 31. That's really, really good. I would think that 200 or so is not an unreasonable amount of applications to get a couple of good bites. Andrew Parrish at 210 liked and have been subbed for well. Thank you, sir. Hey, we got 9 people who have liked so far out of the 23 here. I got your names, man. I got your addresses. And you know what? If you're running a YouTube channel, we'll like yours. There we go. Moving up. Okay. Get a job. Yeah, now that you have a job, Jane Slayer, the next thing to do is to start studying at night for your next certification. That's what Mike would tell you, because studying for CompTIA certification should be done after school and at night and on lunch breaks and so forth. Okay, Scott posted our AMA special deals of the week at 211. Thank you, Scott. Jason Helms, what's up? Glad you're here, man. Tarun at 212. Class D IP addresses, which are used for broadcast. Are they used in public internet only, internet on only inside private networks? Let me parse that sentence here. Are they used in public internet on only inside private networks? No, they are used on public internet when you connect to a live streaming event that uses not broadcast, but multicast is the right term for what we do with Class D. Then they will issue a 224.something.something.something address to the process that you are using to watch live stream. And that 224 natively goes through all routers and across the internet to you, and it survives when it goes into your LAN as a source address. You may have to go through NAT and temporarily go back and forth between your NAT address and your public address, but it doesn't matter. This is a stream. It's all one way. You don't have to send back acknowledgments. So you're only going to use NAT one time, and that's at the beginning to set up the stream with the stream provider. And after that, it just streams. As long as you're running the application that's receiving that stream, you don't have any outbound communication going. Checking questions. If I see ats, that tells me you're talking to somebody else, and I skip right by it. So if you got an at to somebody else, and that includes a question that I should be looking at, either do an at David Rush, or post a separate link with no ats in it, a separate post. Andrew Hutz, what's a good word to Scott? Okay, glad you're here. Lots of adding. Yeah, tad fuzzy. I don't know what the nature of that is, but you know I'm not going to attempt to change something right here midstream. I count my blessings when the whole thing stays together for the whole show. Yeah, SCA is, I was talking to Scott the other day, Society for Creative Anachronisms, is quiet right now as far as personal get-togethers for obvious reasons. Andrew Parrish at 2:14. Means I'm 14 minutes behind schedule. That is okay. Do you experience any overheating or high CPU temps than normal running Zoom? So I mentioned this, I think, to you before. You've asked me about high temps in Zoom in the past. I have gathered all of my equipment to do a Zoom lab. I've got Box 86 ready to go. I've got Zoom ready to go, and I'm all set to do that. I have a big monster cooler here set aside. So I'm going to build this without extra cooling, and I'm going to build it with extra cooling. I expect it to run hot. And we got a full-time virtual machine slash emulator, VBox 86. That's an emulator that works very hard. It's a dynamic emulator. It translates CPU commands for x86 boxes to ARM chips on the fly. That's a lot of processing horsepower. And then, of course, it's running the native code of the Zoom client. So I don't have the answer yet. I have seen reports of people saying they run it just fine, and sometimes they use terms like extra cooling. I got the biggest, baddest cooler in existence for Raspberries right now, the Ice Tower. So I don't have the answer for you. I will get it. You're saying it makes your MacBook run hot, huh? Yeah. My laptop doesn't run hot, and I'm, of course, running the Zoom client on here just fine. So I'm adding your question to my list of future questions to answer in depth. Click, click, click. And as my project continues, I will fill you in. Olu can do. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, you got it. Jason accuses me of blaspheming. 215, blasphemy, you don't need a pie. Who are you? And what have you done, David Rush? Hey, don't get me wrong, man. I do have one machine that's not a Pi that runs Linux, but it's just an Ubuntu VM that runs on my laptop here. That's not true. I got a pile of VMs on there. Because sometimes in my other parts of life, I get questions about, hey, I did this on Ubuntu, and can you check it out? Sure. Oh, man, that's cool. Your apartment location, Andrew Hutz, 215. I still have me as a pending on LinkedIn. I see no pending on LinkedIn for you. I was on LinkedIn this morning checking it. I will check that as soon as we get done here with this AMA top thing and see what's going on. And if I don't find it, I'm not going to ask you to send it again. I got better ways. I will find you on LinkedIn because I know your real name. And it's such a common name, I'll never freaking find it. But if I do, I'll send you an invite or request. Reading questions, moving past 218. Yeah, that's funny, Andre. Our pies are stuck in the Suez Canal. It's going to be a while. Tarun, is Gyroscope. Tarun, these questions sound like these are coming from practice test questions, and I'm a little concerned about some of them, thinking that they may be real. So, if you got real questions or you're getting them from question sites that say these are real questions, I don't want to see them on here. But I'll try and give generic answers. But let's, I want questions that you want to know out of your head or clarifications from our books and materials and things like that. I'm not here to answer or explain somebody else's practice test questions. If you got questions about a practice test question, Total Seminars has practice test questions, and I will be glad to talk about them, but not about anybody else's. Okay, so 219. Tarun Chada says, is gyroscope and magnetometer the same thing? Which one is used by Google Maps and apps to show orientation on the smartphone? Yeah, I know that question. So I'm just going to answer. A gyroscope is a spinning piece of technology that can detect when it's turned in any of the 6 axes, or this one, through, not reluctance. Yeah, I spent 4 years getting a physics degree, and I can't come up with the right term. But whenever we try to deflect something that's spinning, we're going to get a sensation, some resistance to that spin. And so gyroscopes are used to determine the orientation, up, down, left, right, side to side, things like that. Whereas a magnetometer, that's used to identify which specific direction something is pointing at relative to north. Reading on, Dave. I'm SecOps Center or Spec Ops Center. I don't know what a SecOps Center analyst does. I'm sorry, because I don't know everything. And again, but I know the term now. So again, I'll research it when I get done with the set here, and we'll talk about it in Discord. Let's talk about Discord for just a second. Good count of people, and again, a lot of new faces on here. There is a Discord server set up by our good friend Jose Braden called the Unofficial Total Seminars Discord channel, Discord server, where it was originally set up by Jose to talk about things that Mike did or said in his Mike Meyers Ask Mike Anything sessions. And that has grown. It's got all kinds of cool little sub forums about Raspberries and Kali and computer tech support. And it's haunted by a couple hundred of some of the smartest people that get together for studying CompTIA and for supporting computers. A lot of the folks who joined in when they first got there were A+ students or ITF students, and now they have jobs supporting computers. They have become the experts and gaining more and more expertise as they go on. It's running all the time in a number of our computers. Post a question on there, post a comment on there. Somebody's going to see it. Somebody's going to respond to it. I keep it running in one of my tabs all the time. If you post a message and at me on there, it'll wonk on my machine, and I'll take a peek over there and see if I can see what you want to talk about. We get together anytime on those things. Most of the time, people are on there texting, but typically after Mike's shows or my shows, a couple minutes after, a few of us from Total Seminars will join up, and we come with cameras and microphones, and we'd like you to do the same. We want to put some names and faces, and we just talk. We talk about whatever comes up. If you got questions that didn't get answered in the AMA or that you didn't want to ask, or you want to ask Mike face to face or me face to face, and instead of typing in a short, difficult to understand question, come on over. So Scott's going to put up a link. At the current time, it's 2:37, and I'm going to put up a slide so you can see how to get there. This is an invitation code. The codes change day to day. So if you're not watching this thing today, it's okay. All you got to do is, do your favorite online search engine and say Discord Unofficial Total Seminars, and you'll find the site, and you'll be welcomed into it. Okay, go over here. Discord channel link. I'm posting mine as well. And now we'll put the slide up. There it is. Had to find it. I got a lot of slides going on here. Click and clickety click. So the link that Scott puts up and the link that I put up, they'll probably be different. They both work. It depends on who you are and how pretty you are as to what link you get. Scott looks a lot prettier than I do, so he's got a better, easier to find link. But if you're looking at this thing and you want to get over there, just pause the screen for a second, go type this in, and you will be able to join us on Discord anytime. Hey, that was fun. Back to questions. We'll do questions for about 10 more minutes or so. Then we'll talk about my news of the week and then get on Docker because it's so fun. Man, I am excited about today's Docker presentation because it's so much easier than I thought. I didn't know much about Docker when I started researching this on Sunday. Reading questions. Sock works with shoe. You should be embarrassed for that, Tolowit. Wow, you're most prepped for Zoom, but with the abundant cooling, I expect no issues. That's my hope. Joe Foy, I'm about to start Security Plus. Do I go for exam 501 before it expires? Yes. I don't need the rest of your question. Security Plus is a known quantity. It's got until July 31st before it expires. Our books, our test questions in particular, have been customized and honed for the last 3 years based on feedback that we've gotten from us taking the test and other people taking the test, the old existing test is always easier than the new test because it has unknown quantities, and we don't have a ton of feedback yet on what the new questions are. So our errata and our customized materials aren't ready. Always take the old test, especially when there's plenty of time. If you wrote this message to me and the test was going to expire in a month and you just started, or worse yet, you're one of those folks, there's nothing wrong with folks like this, but you're one of the people who, I'm not going to do A plus or Net plus yet. I'm going to start with Sec plus. I don't believe that there would be enough time unless you had significant background in the topic to slam through that in 30 days and get it tested in time. So, but you have plenty of time. You want 501. Oh yeah, I remember connecting to you now that you mention it. Okay, good. Hey, Maven Feliciano. I was researching smartphone supply. I want to know if I need both. Look, there are so many sensors in smartphones right now. Unless you buy the $1.89 special, if you're buying a decent smartphone in the $200 US and up, it's got both magnetometer and gyroscopes and so many other sensors. In fact, here's what you want to do. Get your hands on a model of the phone that you are considering purchasing. And I'm going to assume that it's Android, because nobody would buy anything that's not an Android. And install, you can get permission from somebody running this thing in the store, the Android version of CPU-Z on there. And you will see every kind of sensor in that phone, and you will be shocked at how many there are. And then use that as a comparison on the other phones that you're looking at. Tolowit recommends, rightly so, that you join Discord, voice, and chat, become part of, literally, he's right, an international gathering of techs. So there's a handful of folks here who are regulars, and I've seen most of them today, who get on whenever we do these live Discord sessions with mics and cameras and things like that. They're all there. And we got so many countries represented by folks just doing that, and then many more even than doing texting. So we've got folks in the Middle East and folks in Europe, different countries in Europe, UK, US, Tulowit's in his own country over in Hawaii, and many more. So yeah, by all means, come and join us. It's a lot of fun. Hey, I'm at the end here. Maven was behind. Andrew's talking to Scott, and yes, I am linked to you, Maven, on LinkedIn. Thank you, guys. All right, off to notes then. I want to talk about a couple of things and then get on to Uncle Project. Not that. Oh, here, I didn't throw this up. If you've joined us since I started, I got a running web server that's got archives of all my notes and outlines for the shows that we've done up till now. I've only got the first 20 shows archived and ready to download, but they're there. So just go visit my site, pirsquare.zapto.org. It's on a Raspberry Pi web server right here. I'm almost touching it. Okay, it's up there. I lied. And I have 12 Raspberry Pis running today. Shrink you. Notes, questions. Okay. Where are we at time-wise here? 43. Good. I got about 7 minutes to do what I need to do, and then we can start the project. And the project isn't going to take the whole show. How's that? I'm going to get finished fairly quickly. So review. What we did last week, we talked about new support for Widevine in Chromium, which is the browser that's included in Raspberry Pi OS. Widevine support enables it to do license management, DRM, digital management, rights management. So you can watch Hulu videos and other rights protected streams online. So very cool. Check out last week's episode. It's 3 commands, boom, boom, boom. And you too will be able to watch Hulu and Netflix and so forth on Raspberry Pi using the Chromium browser. The big project last week was to set up a WireGuard VPN server on Raspberry Pi. It's a 3-phase project. Install and configure the VPN server on the Pi, set up port forwarding on your router, install and configure a VPN tunnel client on your remote machine. We did it on a Windows laptop. WireGuard clients are available for all of the popular platforms that you might want to take on the road, including a desktop. Windows, Mac, x86-based Linux, ARM-based Linux. Cool project. What are we doing today? Gonna do, I don't have any interesting tricks or traps except one quickie that I want to show you. We're looking at Docker. We're going to install a Docker engine. We're going to install and run a Docker container. I'm going to show you a little bit more about Docker as we go. Okay, news, tricks, and traps of the week. I got to show you this because this is just beyond uber cool. The Raspberry Pi imager has been updated, and I'm just going to show it to you. Give me a second to bring it up, and I'll show you what they did. And I used it this week for the first time. Man, cannot begin to describe the thrill of what we were able to accomplish. All right, Raspberry Pi imager, it's right there. Boom. Yeah. Come up, and then we can share it. There it is. Okay, now we go into the sherry thingy. All right, what you're looking at is the Raspberry Pi imager. It was updated late last week, and it doesn't look any different. And if you don't know the secret keystrokes, it won't act any different. What you would do is you choose an image from your file system that you've copied down from the Raspberry Pi site. You'd say use custom and you browse for it. Or this is really cool. They've done this for a little while now. You can just pick any operating system that's supported by Raspberry Pi, and it will download it and write the image to your micro SD card. Then in this box, you would pick, you don't see anything there because I don't have a micro SD card slotted into my computer or into a Raspberry Pi, I'm sorry, a micro SD card reader writer, but you'd pick it from that. And then once you had something in both of those boxes, you would be able to click the write button here. And you write the image, and then you put it into your Raspberry Pi and you boot it up. And then you got a whole bunch of things to do, including change the name on your server, set up the Wi-Fi system, and lots of other goodies. Well, if I hold down Control, Shift, and X at the same time, a new submenu comes up that will pre-configure a Raspberry Pi image. So you can disable the overscan process on your screen. You can set a host name for it. You can pre-enable SSH, which you could kind of sort of do before this thing existed, but you had to manually get in there and edit a file. And after you booted it the first time, that file went away. This stays set as well. You can pre-configure your Wi-Fi, your SSID, your password, set your Wi-Fi country. This menu sucks because you can't page down through it. It's 500, 2 letters, 306, I think, 2-letter characteristics, and you just got to click and drag or ugh. Set up your locale. You get the idea. You save those settings, and then you hit the big write button, and a lot of the customization that you normally have to do after you've booted up the first time is already done. The one thing that this thing has a problem with is it changes the way a normal first boot goes. And that is the very last step that the thing takes is to do an update and upgrade. You got to do that manually. Doesn't happen any slower or any faster, but it doesn't happen if you don't do it. Today, as we speak, I checked the Raspberry Pi site just before I came on, and got this notification. Raspberry Pi Foundation released a new version of Raspberry Pi OS. It has the newest, latest, greatest Linux kernel in there, supported until 2022. Adds support for NVMe devices. That's usually on the CM, but and lots of other support. So if you've got an image that you've downloaded of Raspberry Pi OS in the past, and that's the one that you're using to burn images for, delete it, download the newest, latest, greatest ones. Personal update. As many of you know, I, a month ago, made a switch exclusively of my search engine from DuckDuckGo to Qwant, QWANT.com. So I just committed to it, said I'm going to try this for 1 month. I don't care if it doesn't work for me. I won't use any, I'm not going to go back and try DuckDuck, or I'm not going to try and go back and do Google. So I focused on Qwant for a month as my search engine, with the plan being that at the end of the month, I will take my evaluation and decide, am I going to stick with it or am I going to stick with DuckDuckGo? I'm sticking with Qwant. It has one problem to my mind. It's got very, very, very limited video search tools. Some that aren't YouTube or Dailymotion, but basically 90% of their stored, researched video links are from those two things. And I often need a lot of other different kinds of video sources. So I will, if necessary, on occasion, go back to DuckDuckGo for videos. But otherwise, Qwant is my search engine for now. I don't think it is at this moment any more private. There's a difference between private and secure than DuckDuckGo. But DuckDuckGo was purchased by an advertising company, and I have concerns for the future. So I wanted to have my options open and ready. And this is what I did. Did that. Old unanswered questions. Telowit, this one's for you, mi amigo. At one of Mike's AMAs, he posted a question. Is there an advantage to buying a DOCSIS, if you like, or DOCSIS, as I like, 3.1 modem if your plan is only 100 megabit per second down? Here is an answer. Is it my answer? Yeah, close enough. I went out and dug up a comparison of DOCSIS 3, which I'm presuming that you're running, and you may be running DOCSIS 2, and you certainly want to upgrade to 3 at that point, versus DOCSIS 3.1. And there was a couple of things that you mentioned, a couple of things that we didn't. This is the modulation mode of the day at present, orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. So if you want to stay current, that's the way to go. Because remember, the DOCSIS standard, DOCSIS 3 standard, oh, I didn't copy the date down on that, came out 2006. The DOCSIS 3.1, 2016. So it's got 10 years worth of newer technology. And here's the big answer. 1 gig down for DOCSIS 3, 10 gig down for DOCSIS 3.1, 200 megabits up for DOCSIS 3. You got a 100 megabit plan, and that's down. So this is going to do the trick. And 1 to 2 gigabits per second up. And then the channel bonding, there was a whole bunch of possible channel bonds with 3.1, including 32 by 8 bonded channels. There's only one with DOCSIS 3. It says, I'm not messing with the old channelizing or bonding systems. All you get is 32 by 8. So my answer to your question, if you've got and plan on sticking with for a while, 100 megabit plan, you don't need a 3.1. There were 2 other questions that needed to be answered. Tarun Chada, will vouchers work if the exam is scheduled from India? So to my mind, you ought to be able to use any voucher from any computer anywhere, because they're doing at-home testing. They can't tell with me sitting at my desk here if I'm in India, or if I'm in Indonesia, or if I'm in Bali, or if I'm in Houston, Texas, or any of the places in between. I could even be in Indiana. But there are places, and issues about using different countries, and especially there are. Let's envision that I'm a Pearson VUE provider in India right now. We charge differently than they charge in the US. And I've got to be closed down right now for pandemic purposes. So how would I feel if CompTIA said, hey, we're just going to let anybody use Pearson VUE headquarters and pay US fees instead of the fees you would normally get? So I don't have a clear answer to that. I do have the question, or at least a contact over at Pearson VUE. And when I find that answer, I will communicate that to everyone, and hopefully to you personally. And then there was another question that was asked and answered in real time. I don't need to get into that. I did Discord. So let me run through any questions that popped up, and then we start on Docker in the next 5 minutes. Did that, did that, did that, did that. Yeah, cool. I've only got that one to go. Okay, there's the questions. I finished off at 242. I'm going to read these quickly. Oh, man. Tullowit, there is no way Maven gets that. You will not be able to watch it on television. The revolution will not be televised. Andrew Hutz, I want to make a Pi cluster purely because I want more raw computing power for its own sake. Couldn't agree with you more. I got a 3-part Pi cluster episode in the archive. Did we do that this year? I think we did. Cluster. I had this document all ready to go. Yeah, look at that. So if you go back into the archives, youtube.com/user/total seminars channel, you'll see all of Mike's archive shows and all of my archive show. We did part 1 of building a cluster on February 5th of 2021. He said in his best Barbara Walters voice, 2020. I used the updated Raspberry Imager today. It works great, as does my Pi after the reinstall. Yeah, sorry about that. I need beer. I like beer. It makes me a jolly good fellow. Check the link I posted on Discord. That's fun too. Okay, I'll look at that after the show. My voice is my passport. Quant is all right so far, but for images, I go to start page. Okay, Mike likes start page, so cool. To each his own, right? I live for privacy. Quant is image option only, has small, medium, and large. Yeah, you can't specify specifically. It's not perfect. Tolwid, voices password might be tricky. What if you catch a cold? I have the same problem with fingerprints. What if I burn my fingerprints off if I'm about to be arrested? Then I can't get into my computer. Hey, my pleasure, Tullowit. On doses. Come on, Dave. Yeah. Doxis, doses, dosimian. Add. Whoa, hold on a sec. Tullowit. Okay. I don't know how long I was dead for audio wise, but however long it was, you couldn't have missed much. So sorry about that. All right. So my job, well, let's try and pick this up. I'll make a guess here. This week's project is to install Docker on a Raspberry Pi and add a container. And our question is, why? What's our motivation? And the answer is this. As geeks, as techs, we should be aware of, cognizant of technology that is imparting itself on today's techno world and today's technological ecosystem. And it's certainly going to grow and impact us in the future. So we better be aware of it. My challenge was starting on Sunday of earlier this week was to take my practically non-existent pool of knowledge about Docker and research in the course of a week enough to make a presentation that makes sense to you, can impart some information to you, and make it practical by coming up with labs and presentations that you can do so you can have your own Docker or Docker Swarm. You can go really crazy about that. So that's motivation number one. We got to be aware of the technology. Motivation number two, to one degree or another, containers and docs and things like that fall into the objectives of the three trifecta certifications from CompTIA: A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. So in A+, objective 4.1 wants us to know, compare and contrast cloud computing concepts, common cloud models, and the big three, IaaS, SaaS, and the one that Docker falls into, PaaS, Platform as a Service. So I'll show you what that indicates. In Network Plus, similar set of objectives: summarize cloud concepts and their purposes, including the three common types of services: SaaS, software as a service; IaaS, infrastructure as a service; and here we go again, platform as a service, PaaS. In Security Plus, objective 3.7, summarize cloud and virtualization concepts. And here we move out of the broad spectrum and a little more specific. They want us to know about four of these virtualization concepts: hypervisors, which Docker isn't; type 1 and type 2 hypervisors for breakouts. And then here's the objective that's directly applicable: application cells / containers. So containers is a broad topic. It takes months to learn the foundation and years to master. So I'm going to try and present to you what I learned in a week. And I learned a lot. So there's a lot more to learn. First thing we got to care about is that Docker is made up of several components which can operate independently and are designed, of course, to be operated either hand in hand or one after the other. For our purposes, we're going to look at all three elements today. We're going to install all three, but we're only going to use two of them. One of them is the Docker engine, and the other is the Docker container. The third part is called Docker Compose, and we'll talk a little bit about him ever so briefly shortly. So let's start with the Docker engine. It's a program. It exists as the interface between a host operating system, Windows, Mac OS, Raspberry Pi operating system, Linux, whatever, and a container. We'll get into that. Within a container is a self-contained collection of programs, dependencies, configuration files designed to work on a particular host operating system. That's a neat little trick here. I can create a web server, install it for an ARM-based system and containerize it. But that can only run under a Docker engine that was designed to run on an ARM-based system, and it has to run on an ARM-based system like ARM for Linux. So if I get a copy of Apache web server that was written to run on an x86 platform and I containerize it and I try to run it in a Docker engine on a Raspberry Pi, it's not going to happen, because Raspberry Pi is not an emulator. It's not a virtual machine. Sorry, Docker engine is not a virtual machine. It's not an emulator. So we got to stick within the confines of the CPU families that we're dealing with. In the package, there is no OS. There is a pre-configured application and its support files. Now, why do I care about this? Two reasons. One, containers are portable. I don't mean that you can take a container and copy it to a flash drive and carry it to another computer and use it. You can. But what I mean is I can create a container that'll run on an x86 machine running Docker and save it someplace in the cloud, on a website or whatever, and then go to any other machine running Docker and download that container and run it. So one of the values here is that kind of portability, and also therefore that kind of consistency. We go back to the objectives, and I said PaaS, Platform as a Service, is one of the big deals that they want to talk about in A+ and Net+, and containerization is what they want to talk about in Sec+. Well, PaaS, Platform as a Service, we learn fundamentals about that in A+ and Net+. And in fact, what we generally learn is the definition of it. So Platform as a Service is a set of cloud-based tools, operating systems, programs that are used to develop programs, web apps, applications, whatever. And you can do that on your own. Hey, that's my development environment. I couldn't develop a powerful enough one here at home, so I built one in the cloud. Or more commonly, it's for collaboration. So multiple people are working on that instance at the same time. But what if I got to be offline and work on my part of it? You know what? If we use the same container that we use to set up the development environment on that cloud source as I use on this standalone machine, I can develop with the exact same software and programmatic resources that exist on my cloud-based one. So that's why it's a PaaS solution. It's a container solution because it's self-contained. And by the way, you can run multiple containers on your computer running Docker as long as it's got enough memory and enough CPU horsepower. So Docker containers are portable across common CPUs. Did that. Containers give us the opportunity to create a standardized development environment. Okay. Not doing that, developing. All right, so there's a learning curve to developing and composing containers in Docker. And we're not doing that today. This isn't a Docker class. This is how to install Docker. This is how to run containers. Because maybe you're not aware of this. I wasn't until a couple of weeks ago that there are thousands upon thousands of containers that people have built and made available through the Docker website storage system. So this is a pretty good chance if there's a container, or there's some application that you want to run in a Docker instance, it already exists up there on the site. All we got to do is download it and run it, and we're going to do that today. Did that. Docker interactions with each other and resources are complex. I'm just going to mention something here because to point out how challenging the learning curve is on this. We're going to do something really simple. We're going to set up a Docker container and it's going to work. Now, what if I set up two Docker containers that need to interact with each other? Well, there's a couple kinds of different interactions. Can they talk to each other? The Docker engine comes with 3 virtualized networks that enable that. So cool. What if they need to share files? That gets a little more complex. We can do unshared files and make them isolated to within a Docker container. We can use a universal file system, let them access UFS amongst each other or as an outside source, or we can make what they call a Docker data volume. It's a container that does nothing but provide shared storage to other containers. So that all gets kind of complex and is all well beyond what I'm going to do today. And for some twisted reason, I got 14 paragraphs here about Docker volumes. And it's so that when you download this archive later, when I get it up in about a week and a half, 2 weeks at the most, you'll have something interesting to read and get you started. Docker is not the only container game in town. It was the first popular one. In 2017, 99% of all installed containers were Docker containers. The following year, that number was down to 83% as competitors came online and grew. Some have dropped off, more have come on. So there's all kinds of alternatives. The big, most popular one is Kubernetes, which everybody pronounces as Kubernetes. Okay, fine. Kubernetes. I researched it just so I'd learn how to pronounce it correctly. It was named after the ancient Greek word pilot, and Greek words tend to put the emphasis on second syllable. Philoctetes, Archimedes. So that one works toward Kubernetes, but it's my understanding is the official honest to God pronunciation is Kubernetes, but everybody calls it Kubernetes, so we will. And then there's Podman, and then there's Vagrant Rocket and Cloud Foundry. Red Hat has OpenShift, and there's Containerd. I'm just going to throw these words out to you. You can look them up. Oh, Apache has their own containerization system. Mesos, MESOS, Containerizer. And that's been around for a long time. Or this one, OpenVZ, one word, Victor Zulu. So there's a lot more than Docker going on, but Docker is head and shoulders the big dog in the space. It's just not the only dog. All right, let me show you the tutorial that we're going to use and follow. I got to tell you about this tutorial. This is perhaps the single best tutorial that we have ever used in any of these projects. It's perfect. Everything works right the first time. There was one thing that didn't work right the first time, and it was not the fault of the tutorial. There's a command line in there that had a -D and a -G or P or something like that. And when I copy pasted it into my outline, Windows, more specifically Word for Windows, said, oh, let me convert that into a smart hyphen instead of a dash. And so when I copied and pasted that into my terminal, it didn't work. I got a funky error message, and it didn't take long to figure it out because Word does that stuff all the time, especially with quotes, but it got me on the dash. So our site is at linuxhint.com. Install Docker Raspberry Pi-2, works on a 4, should work on a 4. Separate everything with underscores, and you're in biz. And I will put that, I don't know what you're doing there. Oh, I see what you did there. Okay. I'm going to put that on the YouTube chat. Stop the share. Go to YouTube. We'll call this Docker tutorial. And bammo, it's there. Okay, I got to remember 258 is where I was. Okay, so that's the tutorial I'm linking. It works. The guy who wrote it, the woman who wrote it, did a wonderful job. Did an okay job on explanations too. So if you don't want to watch the rest of the show, follow that tutorial, and it's pretty well dead on. Now they got a little bit of superfluous extra information at the beginning that hopefully you already know. I'll mention it here real quickly, but then we'll get right into it. By the way, setting up and running a Docker engine takes 7 commands. One of them is time consuming, 5 minutes. So you can do the whole thing in under 10 minutes, and that includes phase 2, downloading and running a Docker container. So again, this is not horrific. What did we do here? That killed 15 minutes before we got to the first one. So compared to 3, you want the Raspberry Pi 4 for this thing, and the more RAM, the better. Simple enough. I used a 4 with 4 gigs and a 64 gig micro SD card because that's what I had on the top of the stack. For a demo like I'm doing today, 2 gigs and a 32 gig card would be fine. you could probably get away with a basic install with a 6 gig card, a 16 gig card. I love this project because you don't need anything special for it. You need a Raspberry Pi and a power supply and a network connection. You can do it wireless or wired, and a micro SD card and an enclosure. That's optional as long as you don't short it out. And that's it. Everything else is online, so you don't have to buy anything extra. So you're in this thing, you can get away with doing this for 50 bucks, maybe less. Step one, I'm not going to document step by step. We have done this a million times. At least I'm not going to demo it. You start by installing a fresh, shiny, new copy of Raspberry Pi OS. And you don't have to do that. As long as you've got a current iteration, you're good to go. But I started with scratch, so there'd be nothing that interfered or got in my way. And I did the experiment, by the way, on this thing yesterday, running Zoom. So hopefully, and connecting to a YouTube feed. So hopefully everything works with every test in place. Should. So you do a shiny new install, download the new Raspberry Pi imager, download the newest, latest, greatest Raspberry Pi image, configure your name on your server and all that stuff, write the image to the micro SD card, pop it into your Raspberry Pi. If you set up SSH, you don't need to hook up a monitor or a keyboard or a mouse. Just the way I did it. Didn't even bother. And we're not going to do any of this with the GUI today. We're doing this 100% from command line and SSH. So you boot it up. Now, if you got no monitor, you're not going to know when it boots up. I did hook up a monitor because I wanted to see if there was anything different. And I was horrified to discover that at some point, nothing happens on the screen, not even a blinking cursor. And that's, oh my gosh, I messed up here? Or do I rebuild, or do I have a bad card? But I just let it sit, and it took probably 10, 12, maybe 15 minutes. I didn't note the time. And then suddenly everything just came right up. And then I had to find the IP address. I used an IP address scanner. You could use Nmap. I used advanced IP scanner. Found the IP address to connect to because I'd preset up both Wi-Fi and I was hardwired in. And then I just established a putty session with it and finished the install. There was some customizing that I did with the Raspy config utility. I enabled VNC so I could get to the graphical utility if I want to play with that. I did the update and upgrade. All that stuff, especially the update and upgrade, collectively takes about an hour. The write out, that's only a few minutes. The basic reconfiguration, that's only a few minutes. The update upgrade is 45 minutes to an hour on my machine. And I don't have a super fast connection here, 70 megabits per second at the house. All right, that's done. You've got a shiny new Raspberry Pi. It's been freshly rebooted. It's been freshly updated. And if you follow along in the tutorial, we are about a quarter way down his page, and we are at the point where it says to run the command sudo reboot. So we've just rebooted our system. It takes 1 to 2 minutes to reboot, and then reestablish your SSH connection with it. And then I'm going to start sharing a putty connection so you can follow along with this. Now, some of this stuff I already have done because I don't want to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But I'll show you the commands and we'll just skip over there. Okay, what have we got here? Pi r square, rasdocker. I named my Pi rasdocker. Standard password, RASPBERRY. Okay, I got a putty session going. Now I got to share it. Remember, this is only 7 steps. This is going to happen lickety split. And I believe we've done putty on here before, and I've been told that the view is big enough. So if anybody's got an argument with that, let me know, and I'll see if I can make some changes here. Okay, so I'm using numbered steps. These are Dave Rush numbered steps. The author of the tutorial did not number the steps. So step number 1 for me, establish an SSH connection to what's going to be the Docker server. And then make sure that you're in your home folder. I can do PWD here. I'm in Home Pi. If I wasn't for some reason in Home Pi, since we're running Raspberry Pi OS, all you got to do is type in the command CD and you're automatically taken to your home folder. And then the first command that you're going to run is my step number 2. And I'm not going to hit the enter key on this because I've already got it run. But you'll type in this command, curl minus these flags. And then here's a destination, getdocker.com -o. And then you're going to download a script called get-docker.ch. Okay, that's a really fast process. It took 1 second. I was shocked. I said, did it happen? Did I miss it? Did something go wrong? I checked and nope, there was the Docker SH script. So cool. Good to go. Next, we're going to run that script. And all we got to do is say, type in this command. You can copy paste it from the tutorial. Sudo space bash, and then the name of the script, get-docker.sh. And if you look at the tutorial, it says his words, their words. Note, up here further. Yeah, whatever. He says it's going to take a while. And I made a note here. Note, this is a time-consuming install. Don't hit the enter key. Just leave it installed. The demo the command. Don't hit enter key. Okay, tutorial. Here we go. Tutorial says Docker installation script will download and install all the necessary packages from the internet. This step may take a while. So I looked at it. I watched it for a little while, and it would very slowly and occasionally put up a line of something that happened. And these lines were coming so infrequently, I had in my mind, we could be here an hour. So I started working on some other stuff. I did, however, stopwatch it. And much to my surprise, it suddenly stopped and took me back to the prompt. And I looked at my stopwatch and ran the note, 3.5 minutes. So a while, no. And you should be about the same thing. This has nothing to do with pulling a lot of stuff down over the internet. If you do have a slow network connection, might take a little longer, but 3.5 minutes. Okay, we're on the Dave Rush step number 4. What we have to do now is we have to make the account that you are logged in as, you're probably logged in as Pi, a member of the Docker group. So as you run this command, sudo usermod -a cap G Docker, that's the name of the group. So we're going to add to the group Docker. And then this is a clever technique used. It says $, who am I in parentheses. That's the system reading a variable that uses your login name that you're currently logged in as right now. If I echoed that right now, echo $, who am I, it would say Pi, lowercase. And you could replace that with Pi instead of $, who am I. But that takes a grand total of a second or two. Done. And then just to make sure everything happens, you reboot the machine. After a minute or two, reestablish a PuTTY connection because we're done. The engine is installed, and all we have to do now, Dave Rush numbered step 7, and it's in the tutorial, is to simply run the following command. Docker, that's a new command. If Docker wasn't installed, Docker anything wouldn't work. So we'll say Docker version, and good golly, I got output, so the Docker works. And as you read the tutorial, I thought this was kind of interesting. When he wrote the tutorial, I'm going to assume it's a he, but I could mean he, she. He says the rev that he used was 19.03.13. And if we look up in here, my version is 20.10.5. So it's a whole number version newer. Big deal. Is what it is. All right, so that's step number 1. We have installed the Docker engine. Now we're going to install Docker Compose. We're not going to use that. I just want to show you how simple it is to do. Docker Compose is not installed with sudo apt or sudo apt install or curl or wget. We have to use the Python pip installer, and that doesn't come native with Raspberry Pi OS. And since I had a fresh install of Raspberry Pi OS, I followed his instructions to the letter. And I started by running this handy dandy little command, sudo apt install python 3 pip. minus yes. And that will install the pip application installer. Just takes a moment or two. And now that we have the pip installer installed, I love that. Dave, step number 2 of this process is to use it to install Docker Compose. We say sudo pip3 install docker-compose. That's the name of a package. This took, when I ran it, the many times that I've run this thing, about 10 seconds. And now Docker Compose is installed. Docker Compose is used to create containers and to manage existing containers, change up their configurations. And he says his third step to test it, my numbered step 3, with a new command that suddenly exists called the Docker Compose command. So let's try this. Docker Compose space version, enter. And it runs. I love that stuff. The author's version was 1.27.4. My version's 1.28.6. Not a tremendous amount of changes have happened since he wrote that and we wrote this. Cool. Now, our final phase, we're getting almost done here, is to install and run a container. And these containers are pre-built. That's really cool for us. Let me dive out of this thing for a second. I'll bring you back. I want to just come and talk to you. We'll unshare that. Bump. Okay, so there are thousands or tens of thousands of containers available to search through and to select and download. And they're free of charge. Gotta love that stuff. If I run this search or download from a Raspberry Pi based version of the Docker engine, it will only show me Raspberry Pi version containers. That part's cool. If you want to go browse every container for every OS, you can do that just with any old Windows, any old browser tab. Now, here's the problem. There are so many of those containers out there and so many people uploading them, and worse, so many people downloading them that they've got bandwidth issues, they've got space issues. It's expensive. Okay, they've got a commercial enterprise arm where they make money because Docker's free for those of us who are just playing around with this on this small scale. But there is talk, I was speaking with Michael Smyer about this yesterday, that they may go to a fee-based solution in the future. So if there's containers out there that you're interested in, do this now and download them, get them while they're hot before they start charging you for it. Okay, last phase, install and run a container. Let me reshare my connection with you here. Okay, in the tutorial, if you go to his header that says using Docker on a Raspberry Pi 4, his first step comes with some garbage, some verbiage. We've installed Apache server. In fact, no, this is mine. We have installed Apache servers in Drama in the past, on multiple occasions. It's not hard, but let's say I want a containerized version. Maybe I want to run in the cloud or whatever. It's quick, it's easy. And what's really cool about this is because you can run multiple container instances on a single computer. If I get a containerized Apache and run it on this container, I can also get it and run in another container and another container and have a dozen or however much my CPU horsepower and RAM will support. And of course, other container types as well. So all we got to do is, first of all, we're going to search for one. We'll use our handy dandy Docker command from his script. It's his step. It's his first step, again, unnumbered. So we say Docker search Apache. This will show me all the Raspberry Pi supported containers that refer to Apache. And Apache doesn't just have web servers. Apache's got a ton of other servers, but here is their primary one, the Apache HTTP server project. And this is the name of the container process, HTTPD. So we got to care about that. If you want to install Tomcat, you got to know the name of the containerized processes, Tomcat, and Maven's over here, and lots of other things. So I'm going to work with this HTTPD one. Clear. And this is the command, step number 2 under Dave Rush'isms. This is the command that chokes if you copy it to Windows and then try to copy it out of Windows. Now, I have since retyped it in manually in Windows, so the smart hyphens go away. But when I first figured out the problem, I just manually typed what I saw on the tutorial into the command line and everything works. And I'm still not thrilled about that. So I'm going to say, oh, you know what? I think I stopped. Let me check something here. Docker, container, going out of order here. All right, I've got that process already running. So I'm not going to hit the enter key on this one. But this is the command that's going to call down the HTTP process, and it's going to configure it to say, when accessing it from outside the container, from the host operating system or from beyond that, we'll use port 8080, but inside the container, we'll use port 80. So you can make either of these anything you want, theoretically. And when you hit the enter key on this, I'm not doing it, it's going to first of all check locally to see if you've already downloaded an HTTPD container. And if you have, he's going to just fire it right up. And if you hasn't, you'll get an error message, unable to find local copy. And then he goes up to the Docker get site and does that. Now let me stop that one. That's the one that could also take a couple of minutes because you've got to download a full container somewhere in the 3 to 5 minute zone, maybe a little less. I'm going to shut off this container. I got to check a factoid here. Oh, I think I did. I did. I wrote this down last night. There's a couple different ways to stop a container from running. And one of them is to use its ID tag. Docker container ls. And here's his ID tag, container ID, E225, blah, 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 blah. And here is its name, HTTPD. So you can do what I'm about to do by either name or container ID. I'm going to use the container ID, Docker container stop, ID number, buzz, buzz, grind, grind. Take your time. There we go. It's down. And now if we do Docker container ls, nothing running. So now let's launch it the way he has it in the tutorial. And the only difference between what's going on here and what's going on my machine is I've already downloaded the container. Got to go back up a little farther on my notes. There it is. Okay, we'll clear this page, right click. So we're going to say Docker run -d -p. We'll do those flags another day. From my computer, port 8080, inside the container, port 80, the name of the process, enter. And I didn't see the error message pop up right away that says unable to find local copy. He's finding it. And so now he's loading it up in the Docker engine, configuring it with these parameters. Buzz, buzz, quiet, quiet. That's all right. And there we go. It's up and running. So to test to see what containers you've got running, I've done this a few times now, we simply say Docker container ls. And there it is up and running. And if we want to test it, let me unshare that with you. And I'm going to open up a browser window and share that with you. Okay, there's good old Brave browser. And all we got to do is go to the IP address, because I haven't got any naming done on this thing yet. It's 104, 1.104:8080. You can see I've tested this in the past. And there it is. It was just a simple landing page to say it works, but that's an Apache web server running inside a Docker container in a Docker engine on a Raspberry Pi. So man, it couldn't get any simpler than that. Just a couple notes to add to this, and then I'm done. Oh, cool. In plenty of time. As I told you, this is a really, really quick and fun and easy project. Checking my notes here. Check the container again. Now, let's say that I want to install another web server instance. A little bit of a problem. Let me take you back to our SSH connection. Docker container ls. It's got a container ID. Its image name is HTTPD, the command to run it, when it was created, status, and then notice this thing, the name is busy_Boyd. That is a random word or set of words that's generated by Docker. If I don't specify a name for this thing, then he will randomly generate one. That's not very useful. So it's a lot more sensible to name your Docker containers when you run them. So his fourth step in the tutorial is to show you how to do that. And this is kind of a cool step. I'm going to do it. We're going to do another Docker run. Notice this time we're going to use a different port number, 8081 on the host side. And then we're going to give it a name web server 2 instead of busy Boyd. And then here's the image that we're going to use. So I'm going to run a second simultaneous web server in a container. Containers are isolated from one another unless we give them a reason to talk to each other. Oops. The copy paste smart hyphen bug got me. Oh, stop it. Run -d -p 8081 : -name space web server 2 space HTTPD. Well, it worked last night when I set it up, so I'm not going to fight with it right now. There's a simple syntax error here somewhere. Oh, let me, just for fun, try this. Docker run -d -p 8081 : 80 -name web server 2, and then the process HTTPD. Yeah, something simple, but it doesn't matter. If after that, when we ran container ls, go away, you don't exist, then we would see two lines on here. Obviously, this would be one line if my screen were spread out a little further. And one would say busy Boyd and the other one would say web server 2. I showed you how to stop a process. You can do it by name. You can do it by ID. So I could use that ID number here. I could use busy_Boyd. It's amazing how long it takes to shut down, right? And there we go. It's down. Container ls, nothing running. And that's it, folks. That is setting up a Docker engine on a Raspberry Pi and then loading and running a pre-built container. Now that pre-built container, you now got to go into Docker Compose to make changes. That's not the landing page you want, and there's some other configuration stuff that you want. And then you can save that as a composed or whatever. But I just wanted you to see the basics of this thing, how it works, and look how simple it was. We started this on the hour with my long explanations and demonstrations. It took us 40 minutes, and that's all. And it could be done a heck of a lot quicker than that, 5 to 10 minutes. If I sit down, having done this a dozen times this week, I can probably do this thing almost as quick as the two longest processes. So 10 minutes, not unreasonable. All right, I'm going to head back and take a look at questions here. We got about 20 more minutes of show time. That'll be cool. I was somewhere around 158 when I gave up. I don't see too many questions I'm going to be behind on. I'll try and catch up with most of them. Oh, wait, I want to. It was at 258 because we're in the threes now. There's in the 250s, 257, 258. Okay. Discussionism official is here. Sorry about the sound thing. And all one, that's what I get. I got to write dates down when I put the batteries in this thing, so I remember to change them appropriately. 3 uses. That's the magic. Sorry, it's super scrolled. Does your guys do that too? If you just freeze it someplace and mark a question, and then you try and scroll down a little bit, it goes. Okay, here we go. Pass, just pause. Very good on the pause, Patricia Grace. That's outstanding. Not everybody gets that. You probably have to be US to know about pause Easter egg coloring systems. Oh, lots of chuckins. I crack you up, says Patricia. Thank you. Likewise. Field of nerds. Easter's called Pasen in the Netherlands with the Pashaas. Holy Hannah, Pass has meaning. Every word has meaning. We ran into that not long ago looking up Blitzen. Tullowit and I and Andre de Goyert got into looking up the etymology of Blitzen the reindeer, and it's an interesting story. So now we got a likely Netherlands-related story about the name Paz. David Zentera, A+, Net+, Linux+, Cloud+. The list does, in fact, go on and on. Do you need to partition containers? Did you see me partition anything? That's because you don't have to. Now, if you do data volumes within a container, they may need to be partitioned. I haven't gotten that far into it yet. Okay, lots of adding here. I'm just sliding right by there. Passing 309 if you want to watch any movie. Somebody's telling that to somebody else. Yeah, remember, we're going to join up on Discord after the show today, at least me. It takes me about 10 or 20 minutes 10 or 15 minutes, I think, to close things down here and get ready to be on Discord, but I should be there about 4:15 or so. I don't know what Scott's story is. He's doing so much work, and he's not hanging much here in the background. I know he's keeping an eye out for folks that need his services, either for the good or for the bad, but I'll be there, at least for a little while. Virtual boxes, containers, PowerShell, do all of these host their own machine languages and respective OS? PowerShell is available for Linux, but it's historically been a Microsoft thing. Virtual boxes available for Windows, Linux, and Mac. They work the same, but of course they have different code because it's working with different operating system and it has to make OS calls. So they are all to some degree different if you're talking about running them on different platforms. There are some things like if you're talking about a script, Python is Python for the most part, occasional exceptions. No, Kerberos is not the big dog as far as installed base goes. Docker way bigger, but Kerberos certainly gaining ground. And I do have on my list of things to do a Kerberos cluster. I'm going to use that cluster setup that we did back in February to install Kerberos clusters on it. That would be kind of cool. Missed the whole beginning to the project explanation. You know what? We got an archive. It'll turn up in the archives tomorrow about this time. It takes about 24 hours for YouTube to render an archive. That was Andrew Hutz at 3:13. Kevin Lopez is here. Hey, so that was really cool. I showed you the tutorial at 3:14, and we finished at 3:40. So heck, that was only 25 minutes of actual let's do the project. Oh, you missed the beginning of Mr. Robot. I thought you were talking about me, man. Lots of ats and people talking to each other. Scrolling past 317. Oh, okay. No, you're talking about me. 317. I may have missed it. Is there a way to know which of the back episodes of Pi Day Friday have what project in them? Yes. So if you go to our archive page, YouTube/user/Total Seminars channel, you will see a list of every one of the archive things, and they all have titles in them. If it's got Mike picture on it, it's a Mike AMA. If it's got my picture on there, it's a Dave Rush AMA. And there's a title in there, and then there's an index, a time index of everything that we've talked about. I'm a hair behind on the very end last couple of weeks. I'll get those fixed here in the next couple of days. But that's the way. And you can also, if you're looking for something in particular, just use the search tool on that page and say something like drama or Dave Rush or Mike Meyers, and then a topic, subnet masking, cluster. What do we do today? Docker. Then you'll find a shorter list that way. If it is too small for you, I'm not doing that. Passing 321. Industrial music is a good example of quirkiness of old technology. Oh, how fun to discuss old bad music. Disco what? Yes, the Dave Rush, step number 4. I mention that because when I get this into my downloadable archives, I got 12 more download archives to do. I do 3 a night. So within the week, something will delay me on one of them. You'll see those, and you'll see them number stepped out. So if you want to watch on the screen and follow the step-by-step written notes that I use and by numbered steps and pause as necessary, you can do that. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about in my notes. The Flopotron. I wonder if there's 2 P's in Flopotron. I guess if we're talking about bunnies or if we're talking about CPU operations per second. I just use SaaS, screen as a service, and work with a virtual monitor. I like that. Andre, you could use 2 or 3 65-inch TVs as monitors. What's the problem with that? Refresh rate, right? TVs just do not have a good refresh rate. But that works for some things. People talking to each other. Andre, talk in general, I need a bigger house for my man cave. Andrew, my wife kindly let me use our second bedroom as my tech lab. Very nice of her. Passing 335. Note. Jason, one thing I need to go is, I probably do, is go out and buy a good bookshelf or build one. In the last year, I've bought more books than I have in 10 years. Yeah, thank you, pandemic. IKEA is thrilled with us. Andre, buy a top-of-the-line CPU and GPU. You won't be cold in winter. My office is warm in winter. I got myself, my wife in here. The Pis don't make that much heat, but my gaming rig, he's a monster. my kid's desk. He's at college, but he's got a gaming rig over there. When he's home, that's on. That's a monster. My wife's got a basic computer that's still warm enough. We got to run the fan in this room while the rest of the house is cold. I didn't hang up on you. I never would, man. 329. Yeah, we're talking about the heat sinks. Yippers, haha. 340. When I finish the project, you're the teacher's pet if you have Dave's number. If he has it, it's because he's looked it up. I never pass out my number, but I do pass out my email address, and I'm going to again. Reminder, anybody here who's here and hasn't been here in the past, looks like we got normal numbers going on today. I got a website up and running. Let me throw that page up. It's got download archives of all of my notes and resources and slides and pictures and of all the show of my first 20 shows or so. 2 of them not in that list because they weren't projects. Square, there it is. And then we can share it. And while I'm at it, I'll put my contact info up again. So pirsquare.zapto.org. I will keep that up and running. It'll be 4 o'clock my time here. I'm going to run until about 9 p.m. my time, so about 5 more hours. It's on up and down every day as I work on it and test it. When I get, I'm just a little bit concerned about some of the security aspects of it. You're safe going to it. I just don't want to get hacked. I'm working on all of the controls and features that I need to install on a website to make it safe from the rest of my network and to keep the rest of my network safe by somebody who might try to attack me through there. So pirsquare.zapto.org. Got a few more minutes for questions. We're going to shut me down here in about 7 or 8 minutes. If you didn't get your question answered, post it again right now. Or if you're not watching this live and you want to contact us, you can talk to me at daver@totalsem.com. You can talk to Scott J at totalsem.com. You can talk to Mike Meyers himself, Michael M at totalsem.com. Like and subscribe, please, whether you're watching this thing live now or on the archive channel. It helps not us, but others. And that's all I'm going to do for that page. Anything else useful and interesting up here? Catch us on Discord after the show here. Lots of people will be there before I do, but I'll be there around quarter after the show stop hour. And here again was the tutorial that we used, and I posted that at quarter after the second hour of this show, 3:15 or so, 3:14 in the YouTube chat feed. You can just click on it as a link there. Good tutorial. Man, the guy was impressive. The lady was impressive. The somebody was impressive. All right, checking questions, passing 3:45. Scott posted the link, his link to the Discord channel. Cool. Kerberos is Cerberus. I think you mean Kerberos. Yeah, I knew that. Oh, sorry. I missed the joke earlier, but okay. Flopatron is an amazing thing. Guy has a YouTube channel where he makes music using the sounds of old drive scanners and printers. I think I've seen one of his drive ones. He used a floppy drive and a pulse width modulator to do jingle bells or something. You know, as for me, I'm pretty happy with the dogs barking jingle bells. Well, Scott, we got 5 more minutes. I'm done with topics. I'm at the end of questions. If you pop on, you can say hi, invite everybody, take any personal questions. Otherwise, I'm going to vamp for about 4 more minutes. Excuse me. Talk about some upcomings and get ready to shut this thing down. I need to get rid of this junk on my screen that I don't need. I did find something interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on that I didn't share with you because I wasn't quite sure how the timing of that was going to go. Stand by just 1 secondo whilst I bring up yon page. There it is. If you're not subscribed to Linux Today and you have any interest at all in Linux, You don't have to subscribe. If you don't go to Linux Today and check it out every day. Alice, who's not here right now, turned me on to that. It is a daily read for me. On some days, they'll do 5 or 6 articles. It's a Linux news aggregator. They go out and find articles that other people have published, and then they make lists of links to those published articles. And the cool thing is the published articles titles. So there'll be 5 articles a day, and most days there's at least one item that I'm interested enough in to go and read. Um, some of them are very simple. You don't have to be, a deep Linux head to do this. The current one just popped up seconds ago. How to set static IP addresses on Ubuntu. So I talk about how to do static addresses in Raspberry Pi fairly regularly, and it is a different process than Ubuntu. And we suggest to people all the time, if you want to learn Linux and you can't go out and buy a Raspberry Pi, create an Ubuntu virtual machine. And then you can practice all these cool skills and tools there. I saw news about Ubuntu the other day. They're ready to release Ubuntu 21.04. Their 04 releases are their long-term releases, and they incorporate the things from their 10 releases, their .10 releases, that they've decided to keep in and carry forward. I haven't looked in 21.04 yet to see what of the cool things from 21.10 came in, but there was some really, really cool stuff in 21.10. Article, I think this one was early this morning or late last night. Yeah, last night. Information guide on how to use Netcat. Netcat is a utility that you're going to find as a diagnostic tool. You'll find it in Kali Linux. I'm not going to read all this to you, but you get the idea. Check out linuxtoday.com and make that a regular part of your research if you are at all interested in Linux. And they always add articles, include articles that they find about cool pieces and things with Raspberry Pi. Hey, thank you, Scott. Okay, looks like Scott's not going to be able to make it on Face because he's not here by now after this invite. But he's working hard. I would also bet that he's probably not going to make Discord tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about what he's doing. Like I mentioned, he got together with Mike every day that Mike's been available, and especially this morning early, to do the next phase of the new book that many of you know is up and coming. We don't have release dates. I don't have release dates. Maybe Scott and Mike do because they're on a deeper, harder non-disclosure agreement than I am. And so some of the stuff they can't even disclose to me. But we have the pre-release objectives for the next generation Network Plus class, Network Plus exam, and they have begun the process of writing the book. And I was very fortunate to be included in phase 1, where we went through all of the objectives from the current Network Plus, compared and contrasted them with all the objectives from the new Network Plus book. And then I create a spreadsheet that says, this one isn't referenced at all in the new one. This one isn't referenced at all in the old one. These ones have close matches. These ones have somewhat matches. It's a very painful and time-consuming process because you have to read every objective from here and then read every objective in here and try to find out if there's a match, no match, close match, whatever. And then when you get all done with that, you have to do it again on the reverse side. I got to go through every single objective here one at a time and compare each one of them against all the objectives in the old one. Then I hand that off to Scott and Mike, and they look over my results report, and they start doing what they're doing now, building a table of contents to start writing new material, adjusting old material, removing obsolete material. It's a process. Hey, all right, it's on the hour. I vamped. It's Friday. We expect Mike back Monday. Well, we know he's back Monday. He's working with Scott. He hasn't said anything to anybody about a special presentation, but you never know. So please join him at 2 o'clock Central Daylight Savings Time, Monday afternoon, right here on this YouTube channel. In the meantime, stay safe Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Oops, I'm going to wave my hand, but I don't have myself all set up on the Go Kill button page. Okay, page might come up. Come on, baby. I can't shut down. Ah, there it is. Page woke up. Zooming. Okay, so everybody have a good weekend. Good night.